All right, so Thrill Data, for those of you who don't know, if you listen to our ride guides, often we go to Thrill Data to get some of the numbers and statistics that we get. It's a website that tracks things like when lightning lanes sell out, like what time of the day lightning lanes sell out by attraction, wait times. It does all that sort of stuff. And they've now created what they call a lightning lane booking service, and they've called it Wait Magic. And it is a service that comes with a subscription to Thrill Data. So a subscription to Thrill Data is $45 for the year. Standby Skipper is $45 for a 7-day trip. So basically you get this Wait Magic thing for a year for the same cost as a 7-day trip at Standby Skipper. So Wait Magic, the way it works is you have to use the website either on your phone or on the actual web, for those of you who still use that. But it's the same idea. It can help you book lightning lane attractions. One thing different that it does is it can help you modify lightning lane attractions. Let me start by talking a little bit about what it was able to do for me, and then I'll talk about the positives that I found with Thrill Data. And not to bury the lead, but I'm going to use Thrill Data's Wait Magic from now on instead of Standby Skipper. All right, so what happened was I didn't get Lightning Lane the first 2 days of my trip. And then the last day we were going to go to Hollywood Studios and I decided to get Lightning Lane. And then I decided I would test this Wait Magic thing at the same time. So at 11 o'clock before that day, this was what was available to me. A 9 a.m. Rock and Roller Coaster. That was my tier 1 at Hollywood Studios. That was fine. 1:10 p.m. Alien Swirling Saucers. 7:10 p.m. Toy Story Mania. And then 8:15 p.m. Rise of the Resistance. So we were planning to park hop that day, all day. So, I really needed these Hollywood Studios things to be in the morning. Now, without Thrill Data's promise, I don't think I would have booked this because, who wants lightning lanes that late? I'm pretty sure, certainly, that you wouldn't do something like that.
No, definitely wouldn't do something like that. But if you can move them up, then that's great. And that's the hardest to do in Hollywood Studios manually because that park really doesn't have the availability. You hit the squeeze there. So you put it immediately to the hardest test. So how did it do?
Yeah, so I think this is the feature that really makes Wait Magic stand out compared to Standby Skipper. That is the fact that it will modify lightning lanes that you have already booked. And an addition is it will also modify lightning lane single passes you have. It can book lightning lane multi-passes for you and modify them. It can only modify lightning lane single passes. I think that's because it can't make a credit card payment for you. But I thought that was pretty awesome. So what I did was after I made these lightning lanes, I just set Wait Magic up and I was like, hey, modify all these to the morning. And this part is similar to Standby Skipper. You can specify the entire morning or 2-hour windows in the morning or earliest available or whatever. Anyway, I just said all that, went to bed, woke up at 8:30 the next day. And so, of course, Rock and Roller Coaster was still at 9 a.m., but Rise of the Resistance was at 10:45 a.m., which was huge. I was gambling $24 actually is what I think it was. I was gambling $24 that we'd be able to move it because we were not going to go in Rise of the Resistance at 8:15 p.m. The rest I could have lived with, but that was, I'm just gambling the money. Rise of the Resistance was 10:45 a.m. Toy Story Mania was 10:30 a.m. Alien Swirling Saucers, a little less impressive, but that was at 9:45 a.m. So basically, I just asked Thrill Data, hey, modify all these to the morning. I'm going to go to bed. Let's see what you can do. And that's what I woke up to. And that, Leslie, was worth almost the full $45 right there.
That's insane because, yeah, it completely opens up your day. You're going to do all the things you want to do in the morning at Hollywood Studios, get to hop to the next park. I mean, not be on your phone doing that manually because that's where you're doing it a lot at Hollywood Studios and often not getting something that's that good. I will say, I think while you were there, the crowds did seem pretty low. So that probably helped. I mean, the fact that you were even able to purchase a Lightning Lane single pass for Rise of the Resistance the night before, the fact that there was any availability suggests to me that crowds were pretty low. But I mean, I'm sold. I'm already sold to be able to have this. I mean, the problem is when everybody has this, what is it going to do? There will be no more manual refreshing because the computers and the bots will swipe up all the times. But
Yeah, I think you're right about that, but this is going to be even more niche than Standby Skipper. It is a little bit, I wouldn't say like confusing to set up, but it's a little bit more involved. It's less simple than being like, hey, this is my attraction that I want. Get this at this time. But the other great thing is because it will modify, you can set it to just keep modifying for you. So, one thing you can do is just say, hey, modify it to the earliest time available, and it will just keep moving the lightning lane closer and closer to the present time as you just go throughout your day, which is awesome. And because, as you and I know, and has become publicly available, so we don't mind sharing this, since there's that 2 hour or 1 hour, 59-minute grace period for lightning lanes, you don't even care if they move it up too far because you're probably going to make that anyway. Just to further go along, like we did not get to ride all these attractions because my son, I guess this is the other new thing that we tried, which was a DuckTales World Showcase Adventure. He like loved that thing. And so we spent 3 hours total across the trip playing that. 2 of those hours were in like 90-degree heat / thunderstorm. So anyway, the less said about that, the better. But he had a lot of fun. It's in your app, Play Disney app. Check it out if you want. But Thrill Data also managed to get for me, and I'm sorry I keep looking down because I'm looking at my phone. Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, less impressive, but it got me a Slinky Dog. It got me Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, and most importantly, it did get me a test track, which ended up being for like 6 p.m., and my son wanted to leave Epcot before then, so we didn't get to use it, but it got everything I wanted to get. Like you said, it was a relatively light day, and I should say that it didn't get any of this stuff like immediately. It took time, but it just kept working in the background. And then I would say this is the one downside. I did have to keep checking my phone because it's not an app, you don't get a notification saying that you got something. And the notifications, like I would sometimes get notifications to my email when I got an attraction, but sometimes I wouldn't. So I would have to keep checking to see. But that's a small price to pay to get that lineup. And we could have ridden all those if we weren't playing DuckTales. So I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic. And just in terms of the setup, I mean, you said it was a little bit challenging. I mean, is it just that you're kind of like having to think through the logic rules yourself? Because that's sort of how I read Thrill Data as a website generally, is sort of
Yeah.
having to do that.
Yeah, it's like kind of nerdy. So you prioritize your rides. And so you need to think about, especially if you want to like pre-set up everything, like for us, it was okay, we're starting in Hollywood Studios, but I wanted to get Slinky Dog, but I wanted to get Test Track eventually. So should I make Test Track a higher priority? And then I got to think about like it can only search when I have a slot available. So, one thing, and it does a good job of making recommendations. And by it, I just mean the website if you read through their FAQs. But it's like, do I want to have one less lightning lane at Hollywood Studios? Like just start with 2 so that the second I tap into my first attraction, you know how you can't search for a different park until you've tapped into your first attraction? So logically, I'm thinking, should I hold one slot empty so that when I tap into Rock and Roller Coaster, it'll just immediately start searching for Test Track? So stuff like that, you got to think through. It's a little bit, I thought connecting the My Disney Experience account, that was pretty straightforward. And that's connecting to a person, not something called Standby Skipper. So that's a little bit less red flaggy to Disney, but although I'm sure they know that this exists already, so I'm sure they know who to look for. And then at that point, you pick your attraction, you pick like what time you want it for, and then you have to tell them, there's a bunch of options, like do you want them to just book it? Do you want them to book it and keep modifying it to an earlier time, et cetera, et cetera? Do you already have it and want them to modify it? So there's a lot more options, but once you do it once, it's pretty straightforward.
So, one more question. So, after you scanned into your first ride, did you leave that slot empty for the tool to fill, or did you book something else yourself manually?
I left it empty because I wanted to get those tier 1s. That being said, later in the day after we had oh yeah, I forgot to mention, it got us Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. That's why I left it empty, because I knew my son was going to want to ride that. And I figured, like, that's one I could get myself, but why bother? If Thrill Data is going to get it for me. And so once I was done with Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, at some point I would leave them full. And yeah, you do have to think it through. Like, am I happy with the 3 that I have right now? I knew that I could get Alien Swirling Saucers whenever. Like, but do I want to drop that, or do I just want to keep the time that I have? You got to think about things like that. At some point during the day, I had a slot open and I saw Peter Pan was open at 7 p.m. in Magic Kingdom. I just booked that for myself. I didn't bother having Thrill Day to do that because I was like, we're going to play DuckTales for like 3 hours. Makes sense to use up a slot on Peter Pan at 7 p.m. So stuff like that was going on all day. But if you're pretty good with lightning lanes, I mean, even if you're not good with lightning lanes, I think the nicest thing about Standby Skipper is that you can just let it think for you. Thrill Data, you're probably going to have to do a little bit more thinking. It's going to be a little bit more brain intensive for you, but I feel like the benefits far outweigh the costs. Speaking of which, I didn't even mention the biggest thing, which is Thrill Data can do this for you 7 days in advance. It cannot buy Lightning Lane for you, but if you just buy Lightning Lane with like one tier 2 attraction, or get whatever you can get that day, and then you just tell Thrill Data, like, these are the things I want to prioritize, and like, I want them all in the morning, like, it'll do that for you the whole 7 days before your trip. Again, well worth the $45 right there.
No, that's awesome. I'm just curious. Obviously, you didn't get to test it. Is it faster to do it yourself, or is it faster just to like buy as fast as possible and let the bot go out and do the work instead of you clicking over to all the days yourself? Like, how fast would you have to like set it up to?
I think from my experience, I don't think it would matter. Like, I think the way I would do it is I would be less. We've talked about this in our Lightning Lane episodes. It's like you get something fast and then you just modify it to get what you want over time. I think what I would do is I would just get something fast, and if the attractions I want are there. One note that Thrill Data said was it's actually easier for them. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on in the back end, but it's easier for them to modify an attraction to an earlier time than to book it fresh. So if I got in the same situation that I got in on this trip, except for it was like Slinky Dog at 8, Toy Story at 7, Aliens Swirling Saucers at 6 or whatever, I would just book those, because you have to do the booking on your app to get the Lightning Lane, and then go to Thrill Data or Wait Magic and be like, hey, move these all to the morning. And I feel pretty confident that it would be moved up by quite a bit by the time I show up to Hollywood Studios 7 days later.
Well, that's awesome. Hashtag not an ad, but this really does seem like it's worth the money right now. I'm really curious to see how much adoption there is of this, whether the prices will stay the same, and whether this is in danger of Disney shutting it down. I mean, obviously Standby Skipper has stood the test of time now for like years, so we shall see. Advantage of being an early adopter, Joe. You got it at its best.